All right. Hey, everybody. Here we are. This is our first music podcast. And in case you didn't catch our video yesterday, which was on Facebook Live, we are doing a weekly podcast. The name of it is Treble with Missy and Thor. And this is Missy and I'm Thor. And we have these really complicated real names, Melissa, right?
Yes, my
Which,
name's
yeah, it's
Melissa.
really complicated. And mine's
Yes.
Thorstein. So
Yes.
we shortened it because we know people are lazy and you don't have time to pronounce first names. So um, anyway, we are just doing a weekly music podcast. This is our first one, so we're
Yes.
really excited.
Thanks for joining us,
Yeah,
everybody.
we're really grateful, and I know things are kind of crazy because you got the fires out there, but now you're home and you can just kind of laugh with us and join us with our antics, as they say.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. So Thor, why don't you start?
okay.
Tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into my entire life story.
Okay. Well, good. We'll shorten it.
Because then it'll be
Keep
like,
it
and then
short.
when I was in the fourth grade,
When I was in kindergarten.
yeah, exactly. When I was 2. So I was born in another country, as you know.
Okay.
But what most people don't realize is I was born as an American citizen. So my parents were both American, and they went to Iceland like back in 1975, I think it was. And so I was born there as an American citizen, and we lived there until I was like 11 years old.
Okay.
So I have a lot of memories there. They're extremely vivid. For some reason, they've just stuck in my mind. And that's where my musical training started, was in
Wonderful.
Iceland. And I was 7.
Oh my gosh.
And another thing that a lot of people don't know is that my musical training started on the violin.
Okay.
And I was almost 8 years old, and that's where I learned to read notes. That's where I learned to understand scales and music theory, which I think you wanted to talk about today, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it just went from there. And long story short, I started kind of playing around on the piano when I was 8, and I played both instruments all the way until now, and the ripe old age of 42. And so here I am.
Old.
Yeah. And I live in Chico, California now, which is where we are, in case you're watching this from like Bangladesh or something, because you never know.
Yeah.
Could be somebody. So
Yeah.
and I teach piano. And Missy here teaches piano also, and we just came up with this idea of doing a music podcast and doing it every week. We've been planning it for a while, like a couple of months now.
Oh
right?
yeah. I think longer than that, really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we started talking about it a while ago.
Yeah. I would say like a year.
Yeah,
You know, it was just
yeah.
like an idea, and
It
then
was an
we just
idea,
kinda like,
and it slowly sort of materialized,
Yeah.
and then finally we're just like, let's order the equipment, let's just do this. You
yeah.
know? Like,
And I'm
let's.
glad we did.
Me too, because I think it's going to be really good.
Yes.
So-
Yes.
So, do you want to say anything about, because you started playing when you were 6?
Yeah. I started playing. I was 6. I originally from the Bay Area. I was born in Berkeley, and I spent my childhood in Castro Valley. And I started playing in church when I was a very, very young girl. And second grade was my first offertory, and that's when you play hymn while the offering plate is being passed in the church. And so I started there, but then it just grew to more. By the time I was 10, I was signed with a gospel record label, Lilliness, and I worked with an amazing music composer and writer and editor, and he's everything. His name is Tom Fedke, and he's now in Nashville, Tennessee. But I tried out for uh, a church musical, and his music editor heard me, and she's like, "Hey, how would you
Wow.
like to sing on the couple?" There were like kid gospel. There were cassette tapes at the time,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
our kids don't know what's
Are you
that.
that old? No.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyways, I did that, and then from there, I continued my music education in the Bay Area, and then I started to playing more and more. For churches, I was in like a little like Christian band. This is when I was like going through high school or whatever, when I moved up to Butte County. And fast forward, I played for junior college. I played for Orville Community Chorus Band. Um, and I played for Paradise High for their choir and women's chorus. And then I know there's more. I'm trying to put this in a nutshell for everybody.
That's okay.
But yeah, and then I was involved with the Monster Concert for over 10 years here in Butte County. It was involved with National Music Teachers Guild. So I have been surrounded with music all my life. I have
Mm.
never stopped playing the piano.
Yeah.
Kind of like you. I
Yeah.
mean, we have been in music all our lives.
You know, it's kind of interesting that you mentioned this. And by the way, if you're wondering why I'm leaning this way, it's because the microphone's right here and I can't lean back. So, but what you're saying is really poignant to me because the one thing that I can't imagine doing in terms of what of the way I'm living my life is living without playing music. I can't really comprehend because I practice pretty much every day,
Yes.
and music has just always been a part of my life.
Mhm.
Whether it's doing playing ensemble with a group, or playing the violin,
Mhm.
or training, or studying, or learning the piano, teaching the piano. People telling me that I should teach violin when I shouldn't, and it's just like I have no business doing that. I'm a student, right? So I'm a violin student, but I am a piano teacher. To clarify, but it's just always been a part of my life.
Mm.
And what you're talking about is really interesting because I even when I was in junior high and high school,
Mhm.
I played the violin in the junior high and high school orchestra
Mm.
at Bidwell Junior High School and Pleasant Valley High School.
Wow.
And they had a school orchestra back then. They don't
Yeah.
anymore. I
Um,
think because of budget cuts and stuff.
yeah.
So it's just always been a part of my life, and I just can't since I was 7, which is pretty young. So I can't imagine like being without that in my life all the time. And people have said like, well, the thing that you're doing now with your piano might just be a phase, because I have gone through other phases. There was a time when I wanted to be a marine biologist.
Wow.
So there was a time when I wanted to be an airplane pilot.
Mhm.
There was a time when I when I wanted to be a flag designer. That was one I
Wow.
know. And so I've gone through all these phases, and then I was like, I want to be an English teacher, and I did that, and
Uh-huh.
I still do that, and actually I
Yes.
really like it. But the difference is because people say, well, isn't music just another phase? And the difference is I have never left the music.
Yeah. You
You know,
never stop learning
you
music.
never stop, and
Never.
and it's one of those things, and I think a lot of musicians out there understand it's something that just never leaves you. It's the one thing that's like the core that you stay with, and Missy was just talking about that, so that really resonates as
Yeah.
well. So
Absolutely. I completely agree, and I am also a real estate agent here in the North State, but I have never I never lost my musical ability. I've kept up on my skill, whether it's working with other teachers, making sure that, my skills stayed sharp. Um, and so, anyways, and it's interesting because there's some other piano teachers here in town
yeah,
that
there's quite a few
were
actually.
very much well involved with real estate. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
But
And there's
anyways,
English teachers who are also piano teachers, other ones too, or music teachers. Like, I'm not going to mention names, but
yeah.
I think the one that you might be thinking of who
Hmm.
teaches violin, she
Hmm.
was also an English major.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
it's just they pair up for some reason.
Yeah, English and then real estate
We're
too.
just a bunch of nerds,
There's
is
a
what we
couple.
are.
But anyways, it's all good. It
It's all
makes
good.
it fun. Maybe it's because there's a lot of details involved with real estate. I'm not sure. But let's talk about let's talk about our audience members,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
let's talk about music theory.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Because it's important,
Mm.
and what they need to know. Why is music theory important when there is a child or even adult student that is taking lessons?
Mm.
Why is music theory important?
To me,
Yes, to
yeah,
you,
and then I'm curious about
and
what
then
you
to
think
them.
too. So and
Okay.
to them, yeah.
Okay.
Why is music theory important to me? I think it's important because it opens up more doors in terms of what you can do with music.
Okay.
So I'm gonna start by putting it this way: you can play. It is possible to play music without really studying music theory, obviously, because there's plenty of musicians who do
Yes.
that are famous
Yes.
and even more famous than us. I don't know. Can you believe that?
Really?
I
I can't imagine
I
that.
know. We have 20 subscribers,
Ooh,
That's pretty
we're
amazing,
big
right?
time.
Anyway, so, going off on a tangent, but, the, there are famous, singers and rock artists, whatever, that, haven't really studied music theory, but they probably understand some of it because a lot of it's intuitive.
Mhm.
Okay, so there might be a guitarist who knows how to play a G major chord on the guitar, but he doesn't know that it's called a G major, but he knows that he has to put his fingers like this. You know what I mean?
Yes.
The advantage of studying music theory is you can do more stuff.
Yes.
just in like for a lack of better terms. And it's kind of like if you, one analogy that I use is that if you can still know how to speak and
Mhm.
not know how to read, like for example, if you're illiterate, right?
That's true.
And but if you know how to read, you have more access to more information.
That's right.
So I kind of sometimes I use that an analogy because I have students that ask like, why do I need to know what 12/8 time is?
Mhm.
Or why do I need to know what a dotted eighth note is?
Mhm.
It's like, well, together when you study this stuff, you're going to be able to learn how to play more stuff, and not only that, but you can cross into other genres.
Exactly.
So if you only know how to play blues music, that's fine. But if you study music theory, you can also learn how to play jazz. You can learn how to play classical. You can learn how to play pop. You can learn how to play classic rock. You can jump, into other styles and be more
Exactly.
versatile and offer
Yes.
more, and you're more marketable. So
Exactly, and I think it's not just that. I mean, if you are a musician or just a music lover, let's just face it, we all have our favorite songs. And like you said, we may have that favorite song in jazz, but maybe there's a certain concept in music theory that you need to acquire before you can play whatever it is that you want to play. So it will give you power, and that's the important thing. You want to learn music theory so it can take you to that next level. And you will feel more empowered as a musician, and you'll be able to do more, just like Thor says. But I want to go into something right now, and there's some manipulatives out there, and there's some apps that people can use to help them with their music theory. My favorite is Note Rush. All my
Note
students
Rush,
know Note Rush. Yes,
and that's an app you can just download on your
that is
phone.
an app you can download on your phone. It's completely interactive. So you would start with the middle C on your piano, and if you don't know, where middle C is, it's
I'll
the
show you.
it's the, key on the right-hand side in the middle of the piano of the 2 black keys. I mean, the left side, sorry. Ah.
Same difference.
Yeah,
Same.
same difference. No, it's on the left-hand side of the 2 black keys.
Yeah.
You press that down and it will automatically tune the app to your piano, and then you'll be able to interact with that app, and it's so much more fun than flashcards, because if a C
Yeah.
pops up, you
I
play
think
that.
you
If a
showed that
G,
to me
yeah,
sometime.
it's a lot of
And
fun.
does it show the note where it is on the staff in relation to
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
that's
So
cool.
it's a lot of fun, and if you don't wanna, make the flashcards or go
Yeah.
buy the flashcards, you can get the app, and I think it's only offered through Apple, but I highly recommend it, and it's super fun. Another, really fun game that I like to play with my students is called the bottle cap game. You get 14 bottle caps, and you label them A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And, Glenna Batson, my dear, sweet, piano mentor who passed away a couple months ago, had showed me this wonderful, wonderful game to play with the students. And what you do is just lay those bottle caps down, and you want to have at least one key in between each bottle cap. Once you can place the appropriate, like, so if it's say it's A, you place it on A. If it's um, a C, you place it on C. There has to be at least one white key in between each bottle cap, and if you can do that and master that within 30 seconds or less, you will have known your keys on the keyboard. So that's a lot of fun.
I'm really glad you brought this up, Missy, because I
Yes.
remember you telling me about this over the phone. So, when people like, I'm gonna be honest, a lot of people when they think music theory, they roll their eyes, and it's not a bad thing, but
Yeah.
it's like saying like using the word math. It is.
Well, for some people, math is fun, but
Yeah, yeah,
yes.
yeah. But a lot of people, they're like, oh, there's kind of like a grunting. Same if I say grammar. There is a little bit of like there's an intimidation there that
Yeah.
people have when you say
Yeah.
music theory. So I have a solution for that,
Okay. What
which is
is it?
related to what you just talked about.
Okay.
Because it's not that bad, first of all. Math is intimidating because you have all these higher levels. Like after you do intermediate math, you got to get into what algebra one, and then
Hmm.
algebra two, and then trigonometry, and then college calculus, and it's intimidating. Music theory is a little bit similar, but it's not quite as intense because it only goes to like music theory one, music theory two,
Hmm.
like if you take it out of college course or something.
Yes.
Um, but the way to get around that, so first of all, there's a difference because with music theory, you get to play music.
That's right.
You don't get to play music with, I mean, you can with math, but You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's more related to something you can do. Second of all, it's not usually not as bad as you think because when it comes to the counting, you're not going to be like deducing or extrapolating right triangles. You're counting and maybe doing some fractions. So
Yes.
it's pretty basic. I have 10-year-old students that can play in 12/8 time
Wow.
and they're 10. So
Yes.
if he can do it, you can do it, right?
Exactly.
And the other thing is what Missy just mentioned is a game.
Mhm.
So regardless of what age you are, you can always use games and activities to learn it that way. And she obviously does that, and I do that sometimes. Some kids are just more mathematically and analytically minded,
Mhm.
so they don't mind doing the music theory. They actually kind of like it,
Yes.
and these are the kids that are also getting A's in math. So some people have a different personality because they're more methodical, and
Yes. Exactly. And then
so
playing the piano too is really good for memory retention. Um, uses both sides of your brain. When you're reading your music and you're playing the piano, it uses both sides of the brain. So I always encourage my students to play more, especially when they have a test coming up, because that's going to help them retain their information better.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's, some good food for thought. But unfortunately, right? Music is math, isn't it, Thor?
It is, but
Oh.
you know what else it is? So no, you're right. It is mathematical, and it's, when you look at music theory, at the big picture, a lot of it is understanding how notes, which are pitches, relate to each other, and, if you really look at it, it's also a science because you can ask yourself, "Well, what exactly is a pitch? What is a note?" And it's actually, the degree of vibrations in the air molecules and how fast those vibrations are moving and those vibrations hitting your eardrum and registering in your brain. So you can get really into science if you want to look at it that way. And when you look at the actual notes and how they relate, you study what are called intervals, which, like the beginning of the original Star Wars theme, is a fifth. So if you're a musician, you might know what
Mhm.
I'm talking about.
Yes. That
It,
means I have to count to 5, right?
yeah, you have to count to 5. You count 5 white notes on the piano.
One,
Dun,
2, 3,
dun.
4,
Yeah.
5.
So it is very mathematical and scientific, but the nice thing is it's also very artistic. It's both a science and an art. And the way that playing the piano is an art is like what would you say is artistic about learning the piano? Like what's putting you on the spot, but
Oh, yeah, it's okay. Me?
yeah.
Just kidding. Um, I think, well, I think you get to, write your own music. You get to improvise,
Mhm.
kinda like you do, Thor.
Yeah.
You are a true artist when it comes to making music and making it sound gorgeous. You definitely should
Thank
go.
you.
Everybody should go on his,
By the way,
website. Yeah.
you never did your homework when you took a composition class with me.
Oh, I'll turn that in shortly, I promise.
She took, like, 2 classes with me,
I
because
did.
I teach composition,
Yes.
and she never did her homework, and that was, like, a year ago or something, so I've been
Yeah.
bugging her ever since, but
I'll turn it
yeah.
in. What about Pirates in the Caribbean? We'll get is that another
Yeah,
show
that's a
or
um,
maybe?
no, I'll
Can't
count that
talk
as,
about
like,
that.
a substitute.
Okay.
So, yeah.
He's like, "You're pretty good at sight reading." I'm like, "Yeah,
She is, yeah, you
yeah,
are. Um, so I wanna kinda fill in what I think is artistic about learning piano,
okay."
and part of it for me is, learning what's called interpretation,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
because learning a song is not just about looking at a piece of sheet music and playing the notes. It's not just I mean, it is that, and you do need to get the notes right, um, because it's some other composer, and you don't wanna, like, just make up your own thing unless you're making an arrangement, or
Yes.
unless you're just improvising, like she said. But interpretation means, um, what are you doing differently besides just playing the right notes? So sometimes you might be playing it a little bit faster than most people.
Yes.
Sometimes you might be playing it slower,
Mhm.
or you might slow down in certain parts.
Exactly.
You might play what's called a staccato, which is like a short burst, or legato, which is playing it smoothly.
Yes.
So that's the artistic part, and everybody plays the same song differently. So the way I play the Moonlight Sonata could be very different from the way she plays it, even though they're the same notes. And that's the artistic part of performing on the piano. Nobody plays the same song the same way ever. Everybody plays differently. They have
Yeah.
their own style.
It's how they execute the
Yeah.
articulation in the
Yeah.
song for sure.
So I'm going to use one more analogy and then I'll let you talk because I'm like
Oh, it's
rambling here.
fine. I love it.
Um, so if you think about actors, like, and I'm not talking about like TV actors, but actors like on like stage actors, like you go to a play. Um, how many productions of Hamlet do you think they've made? Probably thousands,
Yes.
millions, right? It's such a
Mhm.
popular play. And but you've had different actors play that same character over and over. These are actors who might, do the monologue differently. They might slow down in certain parts of the monologue. They might raise their voice in some parts. They might pause after a certain word, or something. So that's equivalent to the interpretation of the music that you play. You're like an actor on stage. How are you going to execute that song?
Exactly.
And that's another analogy that you can sort of think about. So
Exactly. And I tell my students it's more than just playing those notes. It's observing those musical phrases, those
yeah,
musical sentences. You're
yeah,
telling a story
yeah.
to your audience. And when those phrases run into each other, it's like a run on sentence,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Yeah, and there's actually a word for it, isn't it? It's embarrassing. Actually, there is a word for it. It's called a cadence,
Yes.
right? And a
Hmm.
cadence, a lot of people don't know what a cadence is, but a cadence is the end of a musical phrase. And so it's like a period at the end of the sentence.
That's right.
And if you listen to most songs, regardless of the genre,
Yeah.
most songs have phrases where there's like a little break in between, including
Yes.
lyrics.
And I tell my students to punctuate,
Yeah,
punctuate,
yeah,
punctuate. It's
yeah,
really important.
yeah.
Sometimes we trace those
Yeah. It's
those phrases.
communicating something, so,
Exactly. And
yeah.
music is an international language.
Yeah.
And you are speaking to your audience,
Mhm.
whoever they may be. And then, we're probably going to be getting into some other topics here
Mhm.
soon. One would be like, live performances. But I
Yeah.
thought, for our next podcast, what do you think? Zoom lessons, maybe?
Yeah, we could talk about Zoom lessons. I think that's very relevant because a lot of people are doing that now.
Yes.
And, by the way, this podcast is not just geared towards teachers. It's also geared towards everyone because,
Yes.
lots of people are wondering if they should, start taking lessons or get their kids into taking piano lessons or another instrument.
Yes.
Because they're hanging out at home and you
They're in the
need
smoke.
there
Yeah, outside.
yeah, I
Yeah.
know, and which is, hopefully everyone will be safe too.
Yes.
But also, like, you got kids at home, and maybe they should be doing something else than just playing video games all day, right?
Exactly.
So
Something that stimulates the mind.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's like reading.
it is, absolutely, and,
Yes.
one thing I can say too is it is a cost, obviously, because private music teachers like us, yeah, we charge money because we have to pay rent and mortgages and whatever, and but what I can tell you is that, that money will never be wasted because they are getting an education that's really valuable, and there's something that happens, cognitively in the brain where when you study music, it's like working out your body, but it's with your brain. You're exercising your brain
Yes.
and you're making your brain more fit. People actually become literally smarter by studying music because you're just working out your brain muscles.
And
It's
there is an
basically,
emotional attachment
yeah,
too
yeah,
to learning music. And I know for me, it was an outlet growing up, and it still is.
yeah.
And
It
that's
it
why
is for life. Yeah.
I've always fallen back on my music. It's
Mhm.
just been very comforting for me. So yeah, that's very encouraging.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
hope that you know, you guys out there, especially with everything's going on.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of resources online too on
Yeah,
YouTube. So,
there are.
you guys can look into that as well if
Mhm.
you don't have the resources or the
Yeah.
money to do private lessons. But yeah, there's
Mhm.
ways to get your child involved with music in one way or the other, and watching us too, right?
Yeah, watching us is the fun part. We're just here
Yeah,
to gab, so
yeah.
yeah, but yeah, I think Zoom lessons is a good topic. Do you have
Okay,
any others in mind for next time that you're
okay,
thinking
maybe
about?
we can go into live performances a little bit because that has a
Yeah.
little bit to do with Zoom, kind of,
Yes.
sort of.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, well,
So,
want to wrap things
I
up?
think we're gonna wrap things up. So
Okay.
thank you for doing this, and
Yes.
I wanna thank all of the, viewers out there and those who
Thank you
subscribed.
so much.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
really appreciate
We're really
you.
grateful, and make sure and tell your friends because I know you got people out there, you have family, and you have people that you know, and you can share this with them and,
Yes. Share and subscribe,
subscribe. Yeah,
right?
absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you. See you
see you
next
next week.
Thursday.
Bye-bye.